The following broadcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. The views, thoughts, and discussions expressed by the hosts and guests are opinions only and should not be considered statements of facts. Any references to individuals, organizations, or events are based on publicly available sources or personal opinion and are not intended to assert factual claims. This podcast operates under the principles of fair comment and free expression, and any opinions expressed are made without malice. This content is not intended to defame, slander, or harm any person, group, or entity. If any party believes the statement made in this broadcast is incorrect or misrepresented, they are encouraged to contact us for clarification or correction. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and form their own conclusions. Guest statements do not necessarily reflect the views of the hosts or producers, and the podcast assumes no responsibility for their accuracy. This podcast does not provide legal, financial, or professional advice. By listening, the creators of this podcast disclaim any liability for any actions taken or decisions made based on the content of this broadcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to I don't want to call it a special episode, but it's a different episode of Who Is With Ross Oteri. My name is Ross Oteri. I'm the host and proprietor of the show. And today we got a guest with us here who is currently going through some troubles. Some troubles. Mr. Drédyn Fontana, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Drédyn, we always start the show with one question. Who are you?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm Drédyn. I guess my claim to fame right now is my involvement in the AMS and my current lack of involvement in the AMS, having been removed, and then speaking out against kind of the culture that has existed in the workplace, I think, for the past few years. And I guess I'm a guy from BC, born and raised Vancouver Island. Moved to UBC or here in Vancouver for university, and I guess
Just
I never expect
some shit.
I never expected to be here, but I don't know. I feel prepared, ready to ready for.
Do you feel invigorated?
Yeah, I do. I've always felt like I'm someone who, when the pressure is on, it makes me like lock in.
Word.
And I know a lot of people who are, when there's a lot of pressure, they want to hide. They want to, go into a corner. But I've always felt like I like the challenge.
Yeah. Now, did you feel that pressure when you were playing track?
Yeah, good question. So I did track. That's funny you mentioned that, because when I knew the article was going to come out,
You're referring to the UBC article
Yeah.
about the culture of the AMS that detailed the EPA report and everything that led to your being removed.
Yeah. When I knew that article was going to come out, I was like saying to my friends that it felt like how I used to feel before a race. Like before, when I did track, I also did rowing. That was what I did throughout high school. When I, in grade, I stopped doing track in like grade 9 or 10, and from there I kept doing rowing. And so right before a race, I would feel just like this feeling in my stomach of, it's anticipation, it's excitement, but it's nervousness. You don't want to mess everything up, but you also,
it's good nervousness at the same time.
Exactly.
You use that for fuel for
exactly.
Yeah. I had a similar feeling. I played a little bit of basketball in high school, and I had the same feeling before games. All right, now let's get to the meat and potatoes.
Sure.
You are the first AMS executive to get removed from your position. I'm going to read off of the main points of the EPA report for the reasons for your removal.
Sure.
It was misrepresentation to council, poor performance, allegedly, and I have to say that I have it in fucking blank, big letters, allegedly. And reports, like, of, I don't even know, like, just bad behavior, I guess was the term used. Where should we begin? Should we go back to the start of your term and your role in the AMS was what?
I was the AMS Vice President, Academic and University Affairs.
Okay.
Which, I'm sure most people are like, what does that mean? It essentially, my role was to lobby the university, so to represent students on the various committees that exist at the university to accomplish things for students that students say they want at the university. But for a place to start, I think it would make sense to go back before I even was in the AMS, because I think it's indicative of the larger culture of the AMS, how I was brought in, because I was brought in by the people who were responsible for my removal. I was told I seemed like a normal guy, which is why I was a part of it.
These were who exactly?
So
allegedly,
yeah. At the time, he was the US president, currently the AMS president, and at the time the AMS president and currently Board of Governors rep. That's Ashana, and the other one's CK. So I was running for the Faculty of Applied Science Student Senator position in 2023, and I got a DM from CK saying, "Hey, I saw that you're running for the this position, and I just wanted to chat about what priorities are for engineering students, and talk a little bit about maybe help you with your platform a little bit." And immediately, I was a little suspicious. I had kind of forgot about that suspicion later. But I remember I went to the UBC page and looked through all of the public documentation and was like, I'm pretty sure my name's not anywhere. Because at the time, I was just running for a faculty senator position. And that wasn't published in any of the UBC articles. Senator at larges were, AMS executives were, but faculty senator wasn't. So I was like, how do you know? How did you know that I was running?
There was obviously like a leak of some sort.
Exactly. So I knew that someone was saying something, so immediately I go, okay, that's how this game works, I guess, is like people talk. So I was like, okay, let's talk, let's chat about it. I ended up chatting with. I went to a coffee with candidates meeting, and Ashana was there. And she started talking to me. She knew who I was, which was weird because I'd paid attention to student politics. I'd been reading the UBC articles, et cetera. So I knew Ashana, but it was weird for me to know that she knew me. And so, we start talking and she's like, oh, I don't know if you knew, but the EUS VP academic position is not filled right now. There's an election coming up for that. And it's a very similar role. You could do a lot of the same advocacy that you do if you wanted to be the Faculty of Applied Science Senator. And it didn't take too much convincing. It was something that was appealing to me. And I ended up jumping my commitment from like what's supposed to be like 5 hours a week to more than 30 hours a week because they were convincing. And so I went and got my nomination in for EUS VP Academic. I became EUS VP Academic, and I ended up losing the Faculty of Applied Science Senator race against the incumbent. But I didn't regret it. I really enjoyed the work that I did in the EUS, and I was kind of brought in to this group that had existed. This group that existed in the EUS, the group that existed in the AMS, and shortly after, I'd been meeting with kind of the VP academics of the different constituencies, and the VP AUA at the time, the person who was in my role before me in the AMS, we met and he said, hey, let's meet individually at some point. And we meet individually, we talk about all the different things that are going on and advocacy at UBC. And he says, you should look into taking this role on. It's a great opportunity. It'd be great to put on your resume, great work that can be done for students. And I was interested, and it felt good to be recognized. It felt good to hear that I could do good work. So that was in June after I'd run, or June or July. And so early on, I was picked. I was fast tracked.
Yeah.
To end up there.
Would you call them the? I don't want to use the term deep state. Hold on. But the power structure essentially was good with you.
Yeah.
Liked you.
Yeah.
and you could get a lot done.
Yeah. The power structure liked me. They thought that I had potential. And what I was told was I looked like a normal person, which is what they wanted. They didn't want someone who was, I don't know, weirdly obsessed with student politics, which I don't claim to not be weirdly obsessed with student politics. I'm here. I spent a lot of time on the roles I was in, but at least I had the look of someone who wasn't, which is what they wanted to see. So I ended up in this role, and at some point, our relationship was not as good anymore. I had heard through other channels, and obviously this is alleged as well because...
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. Through secondhand sources, I'd heard they were not happy with my political leanings, like that I'd heard that I was seen as too left, that they didn't expect that, I guess, from me. And so I was falling out of standing in their eyes, but at that point it was kind of too late because I'd been picked as their candidate for VP AUA. So I ran and I won for AMS VP AUA, and I'm in the role for a bit and starting to get good work done. And at some point there was I don't want to get into too much of the personal details because I don't want to make this a gossip column.
This is not what this podcast is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But my opinion on CK very much changed. I had already kind of had a negative opinion of Ashana at Camille because I knew that they were kind of playing this like House of Cards game. Yeah. And I thought CK was different because, he's the US president. He has this reputation in the community of being, he just wants to contribute to the community. He wants to build up the EUS as this space for engineers to be themselves. And just looking back and finding out some new information about him, it kind of recontextualized how I saw him. Yeah. And I always knew that he was a very convincing person because he is. He's very good at talking. But kind of finding out new information, it recontextualized. If a person is as convincing as he is, what kind of power does he have over me, over the people around me, over the people in council, over the entire AMS?
What information did you find out that made you feel this way? If you can allegedly share. Yeah. In Minecraft, whatever the fuck.
It's a little, I think that's just something that's a little too personal.
That's all good. No worries.
But yeah, it just kind of recontextualized, and me and some of the other VPs, or all of the other VPs, started chatting about it and feeling like, hey, like, we don't really feel comfortable with him. And beyond that, we started to see that he wasn't really doing that much, because he has this aura. It's weird. I don't know if you've heard of like Steve Jobs in the reality distortion field. Yeah. It was like that. It was like you just think that he is competent because he's CK, and you don't question, if he's disorganized or if he's kind of claiming things that he's doing that were done by permanent staff or done by other VPs or, done by his staff.
It's like Logan Roy in Succession.
Yeah. I mean, he's got this force, right? Yeah. And so you just think like that he must be competent, and you make your brain you force your brain into believing everything he says because it's CK. It has to be. And there's so many other people in your community that believe in CK. There's a term that's used in the US. It's called the cult of CK. And I didn't really think about what that meant until after all of this. And that kind of started to hit, and I was like, okay, yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is the cult of CK. But we just started to notice, like, he's not really doing much. And we were like, hey, man, we found out this information. We just want you to be honest with us. Like,
when you say you guys, who was it?
It was me and all the other VPs.
So this was allegedly Was this the meeting with Aisha
Gavin,
and Gavin?
Amy, yeah.
Okay,
and
with
CK.
Amy as
Yeah,
well.
Amy was there.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember I had a one-on-one with him, and I said, "Hey, like, look, like, we can move forward. Just be fully open with us. Like, we just need you to tell the truth. Like, we need you to be honest, so that we can rebuild our team dynamic, and like, we don't need you to be performing perfectly. You know, we don't need you to be the best president ever. We just need to trust that you're not going to fuck us over, and then we won't fuck you over, you know?" And we have this meeting. First of all, we asked to have this meeting, and he delays it. You know, he's like, "Oh, I can't just have a meeting any time." He gives us a time for after the next council meeting. And all year, council had been pretty quiet. Like, council wasn't super critical. They were, you know, asking questions, fair questions, but it wasn't kind of absurd. And then all of a sudden, this council meeting, suspiciously after we asked to have this meeting, is, you know, they start asking hard questions, kind of unfair questions. I remember,
To you?
not just me, it was the whole team.
Including CK?
I think one question, there were a couple questions of CK as well. Yeah, but I feel like I sound crazy when I say it, but like, that was, in my opinion, kind of a play. Like, oh, it's not just questioning us, you know, oh, it's CK too. But I kind of don't believe for a second that that was ever the intention of it, to actually question CK. So we're getting really, like, they're really going after us now. And then immediately after, we have this meeting, and it doesn't go well, like, at all. We just wanted to have a, like, open and honest conversation. I went to HR beforehand, and I said, we're having this issue. How do we go about this in a healthy way? How do we resolve this? Like, we want to be able to move forward, but I don't know how. I've never done this before. And so I got some tips about, you know, writing down rules for the conversation, and, you know, making sure that everyone was comfortable, and, like, taking breaks if we need breaks. So the first part of the conversation was just us figuring out how this conversation was going to go. And then we got into the, like, nitty gritty, and it just, like, you know, he just started, like, yelling. Like, he just started yelling. He was, like, slamming his water bottle on the table. He was getting mad at me for calling him out. And yeah, I mean, it was very uncomfortable. And I remember feeling like kind of terrified, because I thought he was convincing the other VPs that all of this was okay, that this was not what it was, and, you know, we just need to be a team again, and we need this, it's all going to be okay. And I was like, I could see right through him. I could see right through, like, the tactics of, like, look, council's on our ass right now, but we can get our shit back together. Let's be a team. It's us against council. Like, it's going to be okay. Just take my lead. And I just knew that was bullshit. So after that meeting, I just didn't see a hope of moving forward with him. And eventually I got to a place where I said, okay, we can just exist. We can just exist independently of each other. Initially we wanted to go to EPA, but we were kind of nervous to go to EPA because his girlfriend sits on EPA. And his girlfriend's really close friend,
And
Camille.
that's Ashana.
Yes. And his girlfriend's really close friend, Camille, it became the chair of EPA. And this new person that they're getting really close with, Riley Huntley, is now in EPA. And this person who I was involved with their removal as co-chair of the Student Senate Caucus gets added to EPA.
Who was that?
That was Jasper Lorian. So Jasper Lorian I was involved in their removal. I led their removal, and now they're sitting on the committee, which is considering my performance. So yeah, we didn't feel comfortable at all going to EPA. So kind of where we got to was, look, I'm sure they understand that it would look really bad if all the VPs like started leaving, and we also don't really want to start this shit. Like, we just want to get through our terms. We want to do what we had. We want to perform. You know, we want to keep doing the jobs that we love. But that obviously is not what happened. I kind of thought that they wouldn't keep going with it, because I thought they would know, like, this is illegal. I thought, like, they're not going to have me removed because, like, it's pretty clear in my employment contract they pretty much can't do that. And even if they could do that, it would have to be, they would need a performance improvement plan. Like wrongful, or like for dismissal with cause, you need evidence that you've done a performance improvement plan, evidence of like all the things that I was doing wrong. And I knew they didn't have any of that. So I was like, well, they're not going to do it because that would be stupid. And then they did it. And I mean, I was kind of shocked. I just thought that they would have thought it through a bit more. And I just took some time, and for a while I was really angry. I was angry with my friends, you know? I was angry that there were people who I considered close friends, who hadn't backed me up, who just believed everything that they said and didn't do the due diligence of looking into it and saying, wait, hold on, there's some inconsistencies here. Like, why is this happening the way it's happening? Why is EPA changing its rules the council before they're doing an investigation? Why is EPA stacked with people who clearly don't like me? So it was just, I was angry. And then I realized that anger was just, it was just sadness. It was sadness that was like covering up to protect itself. And once I kind of like had dealt with that, like, you know, I cried. Like I cried a good cry. And once that happened, I felt like I dealt with that, and that I could feel like I felt so much more clear. My mind felt clear that I knew that the direction I was going was the right direction, that they did need to be held accountable. And I wasn't doing this out of anger. I was doing this because I thought it was the right thing to do.
The EPA report
Yeah.
that they conduct.
Yeah.
To be fair to the individuals involved, there were some recusals as well for
Yeah.
people who felt like they had a conflict of interest. The report comes out.
Yeah.
It details, number one, the misrepresentation to
Mhm.
council about $10K that was allegedly guaranteed. Well, okay, let me not even say that EPA came. I'm so scared of being sued.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Allegedly $10K that was allegedly guaranteed that allegedly wasn't there.
Mhm.
Can you speak more to that situation?
Yep.
Because it seemed as though like that money was guaranteed and then it wasn't. Some people think it's just he said, she said.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seems like he said, she said, but really the burden of proof is on the accuser. They need to prove that I ever guaranteed that $10K. And to give more context on it, what it is, it's the Food Security Initiative, FSI committee, which is $800,000 divided between UBC Okanagan campus and UBC Vancouver campus. A lot of the initiatives from previous years were continued on to the next year. So that's Food Bank, the Sprouts, the GSS had a couple initiatives. So we decided at the committee that all of those would continue on with the same amount of funding, and the only one that wasn't was meal care. And because, meal share. Meal care is another initiative. And that was because it was not really a fair allocation, and they'd already kind of shut it down at UBCO, and they were talking about shutting it down here. So that leftover was $39,000. So this $39,000, I said, okay, let's try to get the rest of this $39,000 and get constituencies to apply. So get, EUS, the Engineering Undergrad Society, Science Undergrad Society, Arts Undergrad Society, anyone who had a food security initiative to put together a presentation, submit it to, send it to me. I'll help them prepare that presentation. And then I would do that presentation at the Food Security Initiative Committee meeting. And I would try my best to get that $39,000 towards constituency food security efforts. What happened was, well, first of all, people started claiming that I said that money is guaranteed. It's definitely going to go towards constituencies, which I don't recall ever saying. And my staff member who was taking the lead on it kind of backs me up on that and said, I'm pretty sure we made it pretty clear that it was not guaranteed. And we even sent emails to EPA as evidence to say, look, here's an email example of us saying it's not guaranteed, and here's our minimum ask, or we were asking everyone for their minimum ask, their maximum, and then the lowest possible number that their food security initiative could work. Because I think we were making it very clear, this is a negotiation. It's not we've got this in the bag.
Do you have these records still?
Yeah.
Have you published them at all?
We have not published them. I'm not sure. Yeah, I still have to figure out the legality of all that. That's one of the issues that I'm kind of in, is I am working with kind of a free legal consultation body right now. So I don't have quick access to lawyers, so I kind of have to wait I have to wait a while, and the more that it develops, the longer it takes. So I'm very slow with what I can start putting out and when, etc. So when I
you
get
still
more,
have them. But
I have those emails. I don't have I don't have access to my entire inbox anymore, which would be nice. I did submit a PIPA request, which is the Privacy Information Protection Act, to the AMS, basically saying, give me all information about me, where I'm included, where I'm the one who's drafting, where I'm a topic of discussion, etc. So I think that there was just some new files uploaded recently, and perhaps some of those emails are in there, but I'm not sure yet. If they are, then we can definitely publish those. But
there were no guarantees made at council either that could be found in the meeting minutes?
No. EPA didn't provide any evidence that I made a guarantee. They said in the findings that allegedly, that I did not prove that I didn't guarantee.
And your argument here is that it's not up to you that you didn't prove it, but it's rather the burden is on them to show that you actually guaranteed it.
Because how am I supposed to prove that I didn't say something?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Do I have to should have I taken a recording of every time I had a conversation ever from, the time when that FSI committee started to the EPA, and then just said, here's a complete recording of everything I've said, and would that prove that I didn't make a guarantee? It's kind of an impossible task. And that's something that I know wouldn't stand up in court, but they weren't in court. They were doing this thing of playing court, playing unbiased. And you mentioned people in the committee recusing themselves. That only happened after I pressured them very hard to recuse themselves, because I said, look, this is ridiculous. This committee is stacked with people who have clear conflicts of interest. So first, I named everyone who ended up recusing themselves. And first, I think Camille was the first one to recuse himself, or that there was a conflict that was found. But Ashana and Jasper both said no. And then Ashana recused herself to expedite the process, but didn't admit to any conflict of interest or bias. And then finally, another email from me was needed where I said, look, I'll bring in witnesses from Student Senate Caucus who can testify to the likelihood of bias on the part of Jasper Lorian. And after that, Jasper recused himself. But notably, didn't recuse himself from the conversation in council where my performance was considered. After EPA does their report, Jasper was still there to discuss whether or not what the consequences of my actions should be. So, they talk about this conflict of interest plan as if this was all them. They talk about procedural fairness as if this was all them.
But it came from pressure essentially from you.
Yeah, I said, you need to be doing these things. This is not up to the standard that you're claiming to uphold. Yeah.
Now, the performance aspect of it was interesting because in the UBC article, they kind of detailed that it was not necessarily like out of the ordinary for certain reports and certain timelines not to be met at a specific time.
Yep.
However, in the alleged EPA that they bring up, they found that your performance was poor.
Yeah. Also, I think it's good to make a distinction between the investigation and the report.
Okay.
Because the report, first of all, I was actually never told what the findings of the investigation were. And even when I followed up with HR and said, why was I removed? Like, what was the reason for my dismissal? They wouldn't give me a reason. Their reason was, you were removed by council. Therefore, your employment is ended with the AMS. And I applied for EI as well, employment insurance. And a Service Canada agent reached out to me telling me that I got approved for EI because they reached out to the AMS and asked them for the reason for my dismissal, and they wouldn't give them a reason for my dismissal. So that I think is an important distinction, because the findings of the report are independent from the reasons for my investigation.
So the report that they use for justification is actually divorced from the reason. We don't actually know the real reason, essentially.
Yeah, neither do I.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you're the first guy to get removed.
Yeah.
And the vote was, what was it?
17-3.
17-3?
Yeah.
There was also reports of like the bad behavior.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Allegedly, you said "fuck council." Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely said that.
Did you also say "fuck CK Christian Kyle"?
Yeah. Probably. I don't remember specifically saying "fuck CK," but I would not be surprised if I said that.
Were there any other I don't want to call them outbursts, but just frustration?
Yeah.
That.
So, the way that it's presented is like I was having this angry outburst. When you take a recording of someone and you strip the audio from it, you can make it sound as bad as you want. I'm someone who swears. I might maybe swear too much in casual conversation. But the times when I was saying these things were times when I was talking with someone who I thought I was on the same page with. I was laughing in those conversations. Like, I wasn't, sitting there screaming and being like, oh my God, I'm gonna like fuck CK. That wasn't how those conversations went. So those outbursts that they describe are, clearly taken out of context. But I wouldn't be surprised if I said other things along that vein, again, in that same style of conversation.
Were there any threats made to people,
No.
either in council or outside of council?
That's the claim they make. I talked about the fact that this was illegal, and I remember distinctly the conversations that I had, because I didn't talk to the people who I thought were trying to fuck me over. I was like, I'm not even going to take that risk. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk to you. All I did was smile at them. I was like, I'm just going to smile at you, and I'm going to show you that this is not affecting me, that I feel like I am justified, that I am in the right, and I know I'm in the right. So I was like, I'm not going to talk to them. So the only people that I would have conversations with were people that I was like ranting to, people that I was like, oh, they'll get it, right? So to those people, I remember I had a conversation. I would have conversations being like, look, if you're ever pressured to do something illegal, don't do anything illegal, because I know the kind of pressure that they can put on you and make you feel like you're doing the right thing, or make you feel like it's justified, that, I deserved it, or like whatever. And I was like, just, if this escalates, you're not going to want to have done something illegal, because, if it goes to court, if it like things come out in discovery, like you're not going to want to have done anything illegal. So I said to a couple people who, again, I thought I was on the same page with, just don't do anything illegal. Like, you're fine. Don't do anything illegal. So if that was interpreted as a threat, like, I don't know what to say.
Were there any like threats of physical violence?
No.
Nothing at all?
No.
Okay. I'm surprised. You're patient. You're more patient than me. Would you support the full release of the, like, first off, the investigation and also the report?
So I said that on Reddit, and I will say I think my ego is kind of getting involved there. And when they emailed me just after my Reddit post, they emailed me asking for my consent. And I was like, yeah, 100% full consent. And then a couple days later, I said, okay, I actually need to talk to my lawyers first, because if they just publish this report and it has slander in it, now it's just out there. And if I've given my full consent, then I have no recourse. I can't say, like, look, you guys did something wrong. The way that you're weaponizing this report is wrong, and therefore I have recourse in XYZ thing. So I need to make sure that my ducks are in a row legally before I can actually just do the ego thing and say, like, look, I know I was right. I know you're wrong. Publish the report. I don't care. People are going to see it for what it is. That would feel great in the moment, but for the rest of my life, maybe I would regret it.
What slander do you think they could throw in there?
Well,
alleged slander.
Yeah.
Jesus fuck.
Yeah. I think it would be quotes out of context. Quotes out of context are slander. And I think those would probably be the biggest parts of it. There are also just examples of mischaracterization, or, things that are just incorrect in the report. I'm not sure if they would be considered slander. Slander is kind of a difficult thing.
Like, slander requires intent as well.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think because it's written, it's libel.
Libel, that's right.
But
yeah,
I'm not a lawyer.
You're right, yeah.
But yeah, it would require intent. It is hard to prove.
It is, yep.
I don't know. This seems, I'll be honest, it seems spicy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are serious implications for all of this.
Yeah.
If what you're saying is true, there seems to be, like, I don't want to use the right word. I'm trying to be careful here. I'm just gonna say it. It's like a culture of rot almost.
Yeah.
To allow something like that to happen. You're even now you're kind of like worried about saying what you found out about CK.
Yeah.
That triggered this whole thing.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, honestly, like, just conversationally, like, do you think your performance was, like, fantastic?
I hate talking about. I don't want to. It feels weird to, like, talk about myself and be like, yes, I was a really good VP AUA.
Be like Kanye, fuck it.
Yeah, but I do think that I was performing, like, very well. I was very committed to the role. Like, I loved my job. I really enjoyed what I did, and I think that I was making changes that would have had very strong, lasting impacts on that portfolio. Specifically, my work, the approach that I had to the office was, let's make long-lasting institutional change. Because I saw that there was a gap in the way that advocacy was being done at UBC, that it was very individualistic, that each VP AUA would, you do your budget submission and then you get such and such amount of student aid, which the school is probably going to give already. And then you put on your campaign that I got this much money in student aid. And then nothing changes. And then year over year, that's just what you do. You do a budget submission, nothing changes. And I thought, we need more collaboration. We need to be working with our constituencies, because I came from a constituency. I was the VP academic of the EUS, and I realized we need to be supporting them, because the size of the faculties, like faculties are half of UBC's budget. Like that's massive. And if we're just focusing on doing advocacy to UBC and we're not supporting our faculties, or we're not supporting our constituencies who are doing advocacy to the faculty, we're missing out. Like we're missing out on half of everything. And there were a lot of instances where I knew that constituencies were being bullied by their faculties and they couldn't do anything about it, and that the AMS should be doing something about it, that the AMS should be helping out our constituencies, that they are our responsibility.
Did you feel like did you feel supported? Number one, did you feel supported by those constituencies, and did you support them to the best of your ability?
Yeah, I think the VP academics, yes. I didn't work with the presidents as much. I thought there was an opportunity for it, because there's this tendency in a lot of constituencies, and even sometimes in student unions generally, for the president to take on that role, the role of advocacy, where I think the president should be a role that they're like essentially the personification of the entire organization. So if you're trying to take on the role of advocacy, take that over for your VP academic, you can't do it to the best of your ability. It needs to be someone else's full-time job. And so that's something I noticed in constituencies, and I said, like, let's support them. But knowing that at the time, that wasn't how it existed, I understood that I needed to collaborate still a bit with our constituency presidents. But I was really happy with how the VP academics started to work. You know, there were a lot of people who started out of the year who were VP academics that just planned on doing a health and wellness week, you know, and health and wellness weeks are great, but there's so much more that you could be doing as the VP academic.
There's 27 constituencies. Am I correct in saying that?
27 constituencies. Is that including the affiliate colleges?
I don't know. I think so.
Sounds.
It should be around that number.
Yeah.
There was a report. There was a statistic that 24 out of 27 disapproved of your work.
Yeah, I think that was 24 of 27 people who gave feedback.
Yeah, gave feedback. Those were the VP AUAs who gave feedback?
No, they weren't. The VP academics were not consulted. And that was something that was in the article. The VP academics said they never asked us. They never talked to us. And if they had, we would have told them, Drédyn is doing great. So something that's said in the report is like, oh, I never told them to go talk to them as witnesses. But I didn't think that I would have to tell them. You know, I was still doing my job at the time. Like the period when they started the investigation was one of the busiest periods of being VP AUA. I was working on the budget submission. So working on the budget submission, and I'm being investigated, and I'm sending emails talking about the conflict of interest and bias. And I was like, they're going to interview the VP academics. That would be crazy if they didn't. And then they just didn't. And they were like, well, he should have told us that he should have.
So none of the VP academics from any constituency was consulted?
Nope.
No one since has talked to the VP academics to ask about your, like, how if they disapprove or approve of your work while you were...
Well, the UBC did. But as far as I'm aware, they haven't gone back and said, did we do the right thing? Should we have removed him? No.
No, I mean, like, so the VP academics, so the UBC did talk to the VP academics of all the constituencies. Mm-hmm. And did they found that, like, most of them disapproved, no?
No, they found they approved.
They found they approved. In the article, it was 3 of them that they...
Yeah, they didn't have... I guess not all of the VP academics went and got interviewed. So if you look at the report, the VP academics were not interviewed at all. Like, there was no interview of the VP academics.
This is which report is this now?
The EPA. Oh, yeah, I guess you can't see. Yeah.
Yeah.
VP academics were not consulted at all.
Right. But the UBC did consult the VP academics.
They reached out, and the 3 people who got back and did an interview, they did an interview with them and published it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I guess the argument would be that they cherry-picked the people who would...
Yeah, the 3 people who did approve.
Yeah. But I think what the reality of the situation is, a lot of other people did not want to put their name on the record.
Right, of disapproving.
I would say at a strong.
Approving.
I would say they wouldn't have wanted to put their name on the record approving me, because that means they're going against what their president did. If they go on the record say, actually Drédyn was great, then essentially they're saying, yeah, my president shouldn't have voted to remove him, which is understandable why a lot of constituencies wouldn't want to cause strife with their boss. But yeah, there's I would be pretty confident that the VP academics, if you went and talked to them, the ones that weren't interviewed would have positive things to say about me.
Hey, I mean, if there's any VP academics who want to nut up, if they approve or disapprove, come on, don't be scared.
Yeah.
Council did remove you to a vote, overwhelmingly wanting to remove you as well.
Yeah.
What do you think the reason for that was? I mean, how come it wasn't closer?
Yeah. I think there was a tremendous amount of pressure put on counselors that this was their legal obligation, this was their responsibility, that, if you don't, big legal things could go wrong and you would be held personally liable, et cetera, et cetera. That's something that's often talked about. That's very much emphasized in AMS, you are legally responsible for your actions. So I think likely that conversation was a few strong voices talking and not a lot of possibility to go the other way. That there was, I think, intimidation happening. And
do you have any evidence of intimidation?
I guess I'm saying I think that there was intimidation. That I don't have. I guess I don't have evidence that happened. I did have conversations with people who were present in council who said it felt like a witch hunt, that it felt like they couldn't really speak up against it because that they would just get shut down, that they would just get, shit on in the conversation.
Did those people in turn vote to remove you as well?
I think the people that told me that probably didn't vote to remove me, because there was 3 that didn't.
So even if they don't speak up, there was still a lot of people who may have disapproved, even if they weren't a part of the group that was a part of the I'm so scared of being sued. My God, the group that led your removal.
Yeah.
They still might not have been happy with your whatever it was, performance, behavior, misrepresentation, whatever.
Yeah.
If they have a personal gripe. Do you think at all, is there a world where, you could potentially be you know what, I fucked up, I might have some, this might be on me a little bit, even though definitely not, the group leading it wasn't perfect, but you know what, I do also have a part to play.
Yeah, I've been thinking about what I could say, what I could take accountability for. There were a couple things that, I should have been more communicative with our marketing and communications team ahead of the AES, that could have gotten released earlier. I could have been more communicative with the GSS. But they're really it's hard to be yeah, this was on me when I just know what the timelines were. From my perspective, I start beefing with CK, and then immediately after, EPA rules changed. Immediately after, I'm investigated. So I was it's kind of hard for me to think all year I'm having no issues, and now there's all of these problems right when this happens. So yeah, I want to be humble and take accountability for what I did. But it's it's hard for me to say that I did too much wrong. I could have been more, I could probably swear less in casual conversation. That was probably a mistake. And if people felt intimidated by the way that I talked, I don't want people to feel intimidated by the way that I talk. That doesn't make me feel good. But I don't think that's what that was about. I really think it had more to do with my opposition to CK.
There were reports, allegedly, of individuals themselves saying that they did feel threatened, physically.
Physically? I hadn't heard that one.
Physically and like also verbally. I think they work in tandem where it's like maybe it's just like body language.
Sure.
Where it's like, oh no, something might happen, but
sure.
Do you think that you could have potentially had a part to play in that at all?
I really don't see how I could have been physically threatening. Like, my demeanor was always when I'm stern, when I look like I could be angry, I'm silent. Like I won't start yelling. Like I will say what's upset me, why I'm upset. But I'm not going to yell about it. So I would find it really surprising if the way that I acted physically intimidated anyone.
All right. Woo! I did want to... Jesus, fuck. I'm sorry. I got to fucking... All right. Professional. Can you kind of dive into the situation with Jasper?
Yeah.
That led to their removal?
Yeah. Yeah, so at the start of our terms, we're on the Student Senate Caucus. The Student Senate Caucus has elections for co-chairs, and Jasper and Kareem both get elected. So early on, I didn't really have a problem. But the moment that I started recognizing, hey, there's something wrong with this, the co-chairs do committee placements. So they do committee placements. They say, you're going to be on these committees, this person's going to be on that committees, et cetera, et cetera. And do these committee placements, everyone has 48 hours to voice concerns about it. No one voices any concerns. So those committee placements go forward. Then an email comes back from the Senate Secretariat, which I was only aware of because I was on nominating committee. So I'm sitting on nominating committee, and the Senate Secretariat says, looks like you missed a committee, that there was one committee that had not been allocated. This is Council of Senates. So we needed an extra student on the Council of Senates. So they send an email to the co-chairs, and instead of going back to the committee, they and saying, hey, there's this extra committee, either vote on it or I'm going to put myself on or whatever, Jasper just puts himself on the committee. And typically that committee, Council of Senates, does not do a lot. It does not have a lot of functions. The budget subcommittee is more of a body that has kind of roles. But when there is a tie in an election for Board of Governors, the Council of Senates casts the deciding vote, which never happens, except this year it did. So before placements happened, the tie hadn't happened. Tie happens. They get an email. Chris sends the email saying, there's a tie in the election. So Jasper takes the seat so they can vote on this tiebreaker, because at the time it was between two people who one of them was closer to Ashana and Camille, and the other one was closer to Kareem and Jasper. And so they wanted to have that vote to be able to decide that. So they didn't tell caucus that happened, but I was aware that it happened because I was on nominating committee. So that's that first red flag for me. Then, shortly after, there's all this drama about a special meeting, right? Special meeting of Senate. And what happened was Jasper and Kareem kind of stole the thunder of a movement that was already happening. And
which movement was this?
The movement to have the special meeting.
Okay.
To disaffiliate with certain institutions.
Okay, so this was the divestment special meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly...
disassociation with groups that were associated with Israel?
With Israel, yeah, universities in Israel. So we're going into this. First of all, they come to me and they're asking for my signature to have this special meeting. And I was like, I just have to, like, I think if you want to have this, like, you should give the administration a heads up, because if you want to have a good faith conversation where this is going to go well for you, like, you should give them a heads up. So I'm not going to sign it unless, like, we're giving them a heads up first. Because also, when I put my name on something, I'm not just putting my name down as Faculty of Applied Science Student Center. I'm putting my name down as the VP Academic and University Affairs of the AMS. So all this starts to happen, and then afterwards I hear from members of the caucus who were Jewish, who were just never consulted. They weren't asked to sign the form. They were not talked to about what was happening. And in those conversations, I talked to them, and they're not, like, they were sympathetic, right? Like, they are not people who liked what Netanyahu was doing. They were vehemently against Netanyahu and the government, the current government in Israel. So I recognized that not only had they kind of redirected this energy and tried to take credit for it, they also...
This is credit for
this move. This
was they were essentially aligning themselves with, like, the not necessarily the Palestinian, but like the looking at the university's role in supporting the Israeli government.
Yeah. And they were trying to make themselves seem as if they had led this, when I knew, in fact, like, there were other people who had been working on this since before the start of the most recent term, right? Like, there were things that were happening in admissions committee, and the work wasn't getting done by the current co-chairs. And I think that's not even the worst problem. The problem that I recognized was a lack of principle, like, that you say one thing to certain people and then say other things to other people. And I thought, this is not something that can, like, our caucus is not going to function this year with the way that this has gone. And when I look back, I really more had a problem with the way that Jasper had handled things than the way with Kareem had handled things. And to some degree, I regret kind of looping him in with those things. I think he was somewhat complicit. Like, he didn't say, no, you shouldn't be doing this when Jasper was doing those things, but he also wasn't actively doing that. So I had a conversation with Jasper and Kareem. I said, look, we're going to have a meeting, and in this meeting, I'm going to bring up whether or not you should be removed to the caucus. I want to have this conversation here beforehand, because if we don't have to have this conversation, we don't have to have this conversation. Like, I'm going to bring it forward, but if you step down, we don't have to have this conversation. And they decided to go forward with it. They decided to go forward with the vote, and we went forward with the vote, and they were removed. So their accusation is that I threatened them, like, with UBC coverage, and the UBC was there. The caucus decided not to have the UBC in. So that accusation of either you step down or we cover you doesn't really make any sense, because they didn't step down and they weren't covered. So, it's like, okay.
Did you threaten them with the UBC at all?
I talked to them and said, like, the UBC is here. I said, like, this might get covered. So,
but that can be seen as an implicit threat.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're worried about your actions being covered by the news, like, you're telling on yourself. Like, I would not be worried if the UBC was there. I would be happy if the UBC was there during my investigation process. If they were there the whole time, I would have been so much more comfortable. So if you're worried that the UBC is going to be there to cover your removal, like, why are you worried about that?
I think it's a little bit different, though, when you bring it up.
Yeah.
Like, just on a personal level, I think it's a little bit different, because that can be seen as, like, threatening.
Yeah.
To you get what I'm saying? Because like imagine if like CK had said we're gonna change the rules and allow the UBC be there for your vote to be removed.
Yeah.
Or you can resign and blah blah blah. Blah
Yeah.
Right. You would take that as a threat, I assume.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, again, though, I would say I've got no skeletons in my closet. Like, it's only a threat if you have something to hide. So, like,
was there something for them to hide though?
I think they were worried about how they would be perceived. They were worried about the things that they had done, like that they were not
that they fucked up.
That they fucked up,
yeah.
and they did. And like it didn't have to be super dramatic. Like I think they should just take accountability and be like, look, we didn't consult with all of the members of the caucus. We took credit for things that we didn't do. We acted in ways that were corrupt in other ways, and we shouldn't have done those.
When you said they acted in ways that were corrupt in other ways.
Yeah, I'm referring to like taking committees without consulting with the caucus. Like
okay.
That was, I mean, I shouldn't say, yeah, when I say they, I'm kind of more referring to Jasper. Yeah.
Whew!
Yeah.
Good Lord. Now, that was then used as an example, allegedly during a conversation between Aisha, Gavin. You said Amy was there?
Yeah.
And yourself
yeah.
towards CK?
Yeah, that did. Yeah, I also have to be careful with how I'm saying things. As far as I recall, that did not happen with CK. We never said we're going to have the UBC come and cover us all resigning. The conversation with CK, what we said, the closest that I can remember to what they're saying is that we said, or I said in that conversation, what is your top priority for the AMS? Like, or what is your top priority, period? Like, if all three of us were to resign and if you were going to stay, would you still stay? That was the closest thing I said. But at that point in the conversation, we weren't even there. Like, we were like still having this like good faith conversation. It was like, I just want to know where we're all at. You know, I want to know like if we're like, we can't do this anymore, like I can't be in this space. It's too toxic for me. And the only way that I feel like I can be here is if you're not here. Would you resign? And his answer to that was, if you were threatening me with resignation, then I would say no. And I was like, well, that's not what I'm saying, but okay, sure. But in no part of that was the UBC brought up that I can recall.
Interesting. Is people there to corroborate your claim?
Gavin, Aisha, and Amy. I'm not sure if they would come on and corroborate it. I know a lot of them are tired, and I get that. Like, it's exhausting, you know, being in this space, being around people who are constantly looking for ways to fuck you over. And so putting yourself out there again is very scary. And especially with the way that I'm sort of kind of, I guess, being made an example of. Like, I've seen like things on Reddit and they'll just like trash me on Reddit, right? It's to make an example of me. It's to say like, look, this is what happens when you come after us. So I would not be surprised if other people didn't want to come out and talk about it either.
I see. Yeah, I can understand. I empathize with all you guys. I empathize with fucking Ashana and them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You guys are this is your life. Like, y'all, it's tough. I couldn't do what y'all do, essentially, because it is a tough tightrope.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, if after all this,
mm-hmm.
you lost friends,
mm-hmm.
you were friends with CK and
Yep.
Camille and
Yep.
like you lost all those friends.
Mm-hmm.
After all of that, everything, like, is this worth it?
Yeah. I think, yeah, it is for me. It means more to me that I know I did the right thing. And like, I don't need to have every person in, you know, all the people that I know tell me that they think I did the right thing. That's nice. That feels nice to know that people think I did the right thing. But I know for myself that I'm standing up for what I believe in. And when I look back on this moment for the rest of my life, I think if I didn't do it, I would look back and just like have a sense of regret of I should have said something. You know, these people are going to go out into the world. And I remember I was in counseling and I was talking to my counselor and saying, I'm worried that they're going to go into the world and people aren't going to know about them. People aren't going to know about the things that they've done and their potential for harm. Like I was scared of them, you know? I was really scared of them. And I felt like it was irresponsible of me to not tell people about what I'd witnessed, what I'd seen them, the lengths that I'd seen them go to.
Damn. That's real shit. Gonna start wrapping up here.
Sure.
So you can say concretely, you don't use the UBC as a tool, political tool?
Like, no.
No.
Like, I was planning on speaking out to the UBC beforehand. And I guess when is this video coming out?
This is going to come out by the 5th,
okay.
March 5th.
Okay, so campaigning is going to start by then. So I can say, like, yeah, I'm running for president. I already kind of wanted to run for president, and I also wanted to do this UBC article. It is convenient that they happened at the same time, but, like, also, how would have I done this, both the things that I wanted to do without making it seem like it was a tool, you know? Like, like it looks like that, but like, how else could have I done it?
Yeah. Full disclosure as well, I reached out to you.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Look, I have no fucking dog in this fight.
Yeah.
You know, like, some of the people that are impacted are in my life as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough, but it's the life y'all chose.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Do you have any Reddit burners?
I have one Reddit burner, but it's very obvious that it's me. Like, it says, like, I comment on like electrical engineering things, and like it's just so obviously me. Like, I remember I commented on one thing. I think I commented with that burner like once, and someone immediately responded and was like, "This is Drédyn." I was like, "Yes, that's me." Yeah. So other than that,
You confirmed to burner usage.
Yes. In the one case, eventually I deleted Reddit because I was like, this is not healthy for me. I actually don't think I should care about the opinions of people who don't know me. Yeah, I was like, this is not good for me. I participated a little bit in the drama. You know, I posted the creme brulee on the.
How was your creme brulee, by the way?
It was delicious.
That's
yeah,
good.
Creme brulees are very tasty.
Yeah, tough to make.
Yeah. It's actually not as hard as you would think.
Really?
Yeah, they're actually.
I know someone asked if you used a blowtorch or if you just had a barbecue lighter.
Yeah, no, it was a blowtorch. You can get them at like the dollar store on campus, or not on campus, like in the University Village. You know, I was so surprised that they would have it, but they had it, and so we just used a blowtorch. And yeah, we were supposed to use little tiny. Yeah,
you made like creme brulee pie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was a giant creme brulee.
Yeah.
But it was very good. Yeah.
Do you have a crush on CK?
I before everything happened, I admired CK. Yeah. Now I'm like, I guess I just don't really care about him as much. Like, I guess I feel bad for him if I really. Yeah, like if I have any sort of feeling for him or really any of the people in the AMS, it's like, man, like this is a sad life. Like if you are acting the way that you're doing, like, yikes. Like I feel like you're not going to feel better about yourself later on. Like you're just going to keep trying to fill this hole that is going to keep being empty.
Now, this is the final question.
Okay.
Will you, Drédyn Fontana, on the Who Is with Ross Oteri podcast, commit to the boxing match with CK for a good cause?
When that happened on the Reddit, I thought it was funny, and I was very tempted to respond.
CK already said yes.
Yeah, I know, but that was crazy, right? Like, when I saw that, I thought, haha, funny. But also, you are the president of a $30 million organization, and you are talking about boxing your former employee to resolve a employment dispute. Like, haha, funny, we're students. But, like, also, that's a little insane, you know? Like, sure, it's hilarious. But, like, I'm not going to...
I think that brings a lot of levity. You'd be surprised. Maybe all these fucking legal things go away.
Yeah, well, it's funny, but, like, also, I kind of have to just be like, when I'm doing a lawsuit, when I'm involved in legal things, I kind of have to be like, I can't touch that. You know what I mean?
After the lawsuit, dust is settled.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe after the lawsuit, I'll come back on your podcast.
Will you commit to the fight after the lawsuit?
I can't talk about committing to a fight right now.
Maybe. In the future, we'll have to see.
After the lawsuit, I'll come back on your podcast and we can talk about it.
Okay. Hello, friends. It's me, Ross Oteri, from Who Is with Ross Oteri. This isn't a sponsorship. I just wanted to let y'all know that we had some camera oopsies. The following, we couldn't really capture the video of it. However, we still have the audio. The audio's perfect. And so instead, to replace the video, we're going to have Subway Surfer playing over top the audio. I'm sorry. Don't hate me. And yeah, all right. Now back to the podcast. In any case, is there anything else you'd like to promote before we get off the air here?
Yeah. Well, I guess now I feel weird doing this. I hate promoting myself. But, you know, we've talked about the fact that I'm running for president. And the reason I'm running for president is because I see the AMS for what it could be. That the AMS can be more than petty politics, that the AMS has done some amazing things in the past. And we are such a large student union with so much potential.
You told me it's the largest by budget in North America.
I believe we are the largest. Yeah, allegedly. So I think what I'd like to see is I would like to see more power given to the students at large, the student body, more opportunities for general meetings, more opportunities for them to voice their concerns on referenda. I'd like to strike a governance review to have a look at the way that our authority is balanced. Right now, I think there's too much power in the hands of the president. I think the fact that the president has all the reporting of the entire kind of permanent staff and businesses of the AMS is too much of a bottleneck. Technically, the managing director reports to executive committee, but functionally, because the managing director actually just has this dotted line to the president, it's the president. And I think all of these things should be distributed more. I think there should be power given to council, more power given to council. But if power is given to council, I think we need better checks and balances for accountability of the executives. Like, we should be assuming that the people who are taking on these roles are people with big egos and
so
are
would you
going
support
to push their...
expanding then the EPA?
I think the EPA, I think we need to bring back student court, personally.
Okay.
Student court is something that existed in the 1970s all the way up until 2020. From 2010 to 2020, it was kind of like had no power. So it was just a vestige of what
Essentially
used to
bring
exist.
back like a judiciary.
Yeah. I mean, I think democracy's had it right. And we've been...
Shout out Rousseau.
Yeah, shout out Rousseau. But I think like we've been seeing this trend towards efficient student governance and looking at corporations as an example of how we should operate our boards. But we're not a corporation. We're a student union. And we're going to have these people who are very political getting involved, and we should assume that the executive is going to try to push their luck and further their authority. And we should assume the council is going to try to push their luck and further their authority. So if we have a third body, a judiciary, to decide on those things. Then council, if they want to prosecute the executive, if they want to say, hey, we think these are things that you're doing wrong, they do that. And then the person who judges on that, the people who judge on that, are the judiciary. So I think those are some things. I think also there's be a possibility of this would be on the table. I think ultimately it'd be up to the student body. But if we could delete the role of president, I would be all for that. I think that would be great if we did a governance review and because the reporting structure is kind of broken right now. The executives report to council, and they also, like the VPs, report to council and the president, and then the president reports to council, which kind of doesn't really make any sense. I think what would make more sense is a chair of the board. I think it would make more sense to have a chair of the board, and then your executives. So your executives would report to your chair of the board, who is essentially a representation of council. And I think it would be very, like, if my role got deleted midway through my term, I would be all for it. So I think those are a couple things that would be.
That's a pretty comprehensive plan, my friend.
Well, thank you.
And on that note, thanks for coming on the show, Drédyn Fontana.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being open. This has been Who Is with Ross Oteri, and I'll see y'all next week.